I saw that and I was like, Lord have mercy.
Listen, because the way I am,
Ooh.
I'm afraid of I'm afraid of heights and I have control issues. So airplanes are a double whammy for me. That's like double kryptonite. So there's that. Hello, everybody, and
Hello, hello.
welcome to the Real on Parenting. I am Coach Kiana.
And I'm therapist Danielle.
And we were talking about that situation on the airplane where the guy opened the cabin door like a few weeks back, and we were just talking about, not only my fears of airplanes, but now, like, not only do I have to use my mental capacity to keep the plane in the air, but I also have to be security and sit on the row where I get to watch what's going. Yeah, so welcome. Because in the Real on Parenting, we talk about all kind of stuff. And speaking of which, I'm having a hot flash, so I'm gonna turn this air. My baby gonna be uncomfortable because I'm about to set this to Antarctica.
But believe me, I understand and know, because we are in that phase of life where the body, this body that I've had for over the 40 plus years, I don't know what it's doing. So I'm just trying to catch up.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to do. Figure it out and catch up. But I always have 3 default fans on deck. So
right.
I got one too. But anyways.
Speaking of things that drive us nuts, right?
Right.
Make us uncomfortable. This is part 2 of our co-parenting, right? I guess, I don't know if it's going to be a series. It may just end with this episode. We might get to the end and be like, wait, we got one more thing to say. So there's that. Right. But we were talking last week about just co-parenting in general and communication, right? So before we left off last week, you talked about conflicts in co-parenting. And we touched on that throughout, right? Just because that's part of communication. That's part of what breaks down the communication. And it's a result of communicating or miscommunicating, right?
Yeah, I will say thank you for correcting that. Yes.
And lack of communication. Sometimes that's the problem. It's not that you miscommunicate, it's just that you're not doing it at all. And so we're going to talk about the conflicts in communicating. So I'm going to turn this over because, again, sometimes my advice is right on the cusp of legal, right? So Danielle, you start.
I'm gonna share. I'm gonna start with sharing a bit of me. That's what I call it, and it was related to just the lack of communication. And sometimes it's on purpose. We'll say I'm not gonna do this. But also just not keeping into account the impact it can have on others, people that you don't even think of.
That causes conflict, right?
Right. So I'm gonna tell you the short version of it. But the short version of it is that my son, he played football, and he was due to go to some football camp, and I don't know a lot of football stuff. Some football camp in San Diego. It was like a weekend thing, and his mom had, even though she was aware, but she had scheduled something else for them to do as a family. There was a lot of conflict. And by when I say that, it was a lot of verbal disagreement between my husband and my son's mom. Mm-hmm. And things got heated, as anybody would naturally include. Right. And with that, there were words that were being said in that emotionally charged moment. Mm-hmm. That despite my son being 17 at that time, I still felt that he should not have heard coming from his father and coming from his mother. And the ending result is that he made it to the football camp. Yay. But however, you talk about those wins. However, was it a win for and him? If you don't know what I'm talking about, the wins, you need to go back and listen and watch our previous podcast regarding co-parenting. But regarding the win, it wasn't a win for my son. And did I say his name? If I did, we need to edit that out. But it wasn't a win because I can't remember. But it wasn't a win for my son, and not because one would think, oh, he went, so it was a win. No, the emotional distress that was
Yes.
caused as a result of that conflict between his parents was beyond whoa. Granted, has he heard things? Has he seen things? Sure, it doesn't make it okay. Sure, however, this one hit different. They both.
I was gonna say there had to have been a different level.
Was coming for the juggler. Do you hear me? And when I say I had to talk to both of them, and I said, not okay. Do I like everything that comes out of your mouth, husband? No. Do I like everything that comes out of your mouth, such and such? No. However, you won't ever hear me. And I went down the list of things that was said, names, statements, phrases within that conflict. And I am one that's very much so like, I'm not a therapist of the family. I do not take that role on, okay? I'm a therapist by way of, here's my fee and you run me my money. So if you're not running me some money, I'm not the therapist anyways, and you ain't signed the for. But in regards to my family and my personal life, I do not assume that therapist role for various reasons, and it's not healthy anyways. So, but within that, I saw that, okay, I need to, like you mentioned, I need to step back because I am not the biological parent. Let me not say that because I didn't provide my egg, okay? My egg is nowhere within this creation of our son.
Right.
And within that situation, I saw that it was something deeper than my son going to this world again.
Absolutely.
And I just acknowledged the fact that words were said, your son heard it, our son heard it, and his age doesn't make it okay.
Right.
It doesn't dismiss it. It made him feel some type of way, and that in itself is the problem.
Absolutely.
And after that, it doesn't mean they always agree, because they didn't. But I saw that they, in their own right, because they're two different people, that they made efforts towards not addressing conflict in that way anymore. Granted, it took practice. They both got on each other's nerves and stuff popped up, and there's a moment where I had to be like, hold on, and let me put the therapist hat aside and let the compliment come. What the hell's going on? But there were, I don't want anybody to think that, she had this conversation and things just changed. No.
It took
there
time.
were still reminders. When I say reminders, it's like, okay, this is when it went down, but like, how does that help this? Who cares that you got mad? Who cares that I got frustrated? In the end, how did this impact our children? So the conflicts in itself is the parents. more about 99.99%. Don't get me wrong. Let me say 89%, because some people's children's, y'all know, don't act like you don't know your kids, okay? But I'm just saying. But there's a good portion where it is the parents, and a lot of the conflict is by way of the parents. And so you have to be mindful for you. What am I saying? What have I said? What have I done? And what is that impact on my children? Absolutely. That is where your mind needs to go by default.
Absolutely. So I want to say this because, so in the previous episode, I was saying, it's egg and sperm, like those are the two main decision makers. And then you just like address that, like, because you have adoptive parents, right? And so there's that. So I get that. But I just meant, okay, in the sense of adoptive parents, whose names are on those adoption certificates? Because it usually ain't three. It's usually, you know what I mean? And I also understand that, sometimes it is, two women or two men parenting. So I get that. It's not the world that I live in. And so when I'm addressing it, I address it from my perspective. So it's no disrespect. That being said,
get that. Thanks for the disclaimer, but I do understand that. But thanks for stating that, because sometimes people feel
some kind of way,
or feel attacked or not included, and that's so not the purpose of this whatsoever. It's just the certain scenarios and life experiences that we're speaking of is specifically related to this us. Is what the experience was, and this is how we're speaking from that perspective.
Exactly. So that being said, I can understand the conflict between them, but I also, as someone who did hear some arguments sometimes with my parents, I understand the conflict within your son, right? Because it's like, hold up, dude, you can't talk to my mama like that, right? So the
Right.
man in your son
But
that has been taught to protect, right? Because I know your husband. So I know he's like, we protect the women in our family.
Right.
And so to hear his mom being disrespected by the respecter, right? So so there's that. And so there's
all
a conflict
brewing
in and I think that we don't think about that, the conflict that brews in our children when they do hear that, because it's like, even if I agree with you, who you talking about? Who you talking about, right?
Hold up. Right.
Who you talking to?
Right.
But they can't say that. And so part of the conflict inside of him was likely, how do I address, or do I address this with my dad? Because that's still my mama. Right. And you know what I mean? And even though it's a two-way conversation, right? And mama is saying something, how do I address this with my dad? Because I have always been taught he would protect me, but I am to protect her. So what is that? So do you understand? Like we can send some real conflicting information. And I am one that will tell you never put a son up against his dad, because dad has taught him everything he knows, but not everything dad knows. You understand what I'm saying? So that's a dangerous situation, and it's a very dangerous game to play. You understand what I'm saying? That being said, on the flip side, I think that sometimes our young boys hear the down talking of their fathers and they internalize it. Conflict. That's another conflict. They internalize it and they feel like, does she feel this way about me? Is this the way women talk to men? Like, especially,
is it okay?
Right, especially young Black boys, because so many have experienced that and they don't trust women on a lot of levels. I can't, I don't want to deal with that. And they kind of think that all women are like that, particularly because if their mom was Black, in most cases, they feel like all Black women are the same.
I was just about to say that. And I ain't gonna put nobody on, because I'm being very cautious of what I'm sharing. But yes, my son at a very, very young age, he was like junior high, he's grown now, but junior high, he said, I don't want a Black girl as a girlfriend. And we could,
based on the one Black woman, not all of them, because he didn't get that with you.
But that was his experience. But and so luckily for me, my husband was able to jump in, because I'm like, what? Because you have that default reaction, like, what the hell are you talking about?
Like, first of all, what's wrong with us?
He shared that all the Black little girls in class were mean to him. He was like, I'm just trying, and he's very talkative, I just want to say hi. And they're like, what? Kind of thing. And I'm like, well, which girl is it? But
right, because we want to go make sure she understands that this one you gonna speak to. Because that's who we are.
But also during that time frame, well, I'll say even before that, there was a lot of conflict when between his mom and dad, that he saw. And, the older ones tend to see, was more exposed, kind of understand, don't understand kind of thing. So
more cognitive.
Kind of connecting those patterns and those experiences for him. And for me, as bonus mom, but I'll just say mom, I had to say, Lord, provide him with someone who is able to have he can have a healthy relationship with. Absolutely. Whatever nationality that is, because you had to, as a parent, well, if your parent, but you get to that place of safety, security, stability, but love and healthy. So, and Granny, he said, whenever you bring it back, I'm like, oh yes, get excited. Now I remember her name. If people don't know, I don't remember nobody's name, but I remember that girl's name. But but that was his experience. His experience was, along with what he had experienced within his family dynamic, as well as outside of home with school, that the Black ones was me. And that was a tough pill to swallow. And I would say that my husband actually did a great job of explaining that, and everybody knows, other nationality, doesn't matter what nationality or doesn't default, they're all mean or
absolutely.
but
Girls
being
are
able
just
to
mean at
speak
that
to that,
age.
yes, being able to speak to that from a male perspective, because that's what he needed at that time. His mama couldn't speak on that. I couldn't speak on that because I ain't no mean. I
Right.
can be mean by way of you doing something and saying something. However, comma, I couldn't guide him through that specific experience in his life at that time.
Absolutely. And I think that, when we're dealing with the perspectives, what is right here, right now tends to be the default of how we feel about everybody or everything, right? That could be dealing with racism. Right. Racism, that could be dealing with police interactions. It's based on what you have seen. The flip side of that, I think so many of our young Black girls see the conflict between their parents, and they do it two ways. One, they pick men just like abusive dad. Well, they pick men like their dads. And here's the flip side. Dads do not get to pick and choose which part of them their daughter finds attractive in another man. Right? So you can be like, well, I provided for you and I took you to all the things, but you cussed out mama, and now you mad that he's cussing me out. But this is what I chose.
It is some toes, but
listen, then put on your Tim boots, because we gotta have a conversation. We gotta have a conversation. You're wondering, oh my goodness, he is beneath her, or he is this on some level.
Or she knows better. She should.
And here's the thing.
And why should
you don't get to say, but she never saw it. She never saw me talk to. It doesn't matter. What she did see is mom's reaction to it, mom's hurt, mom's pain, and she assumes, right? There's a connection to that, right? Also, there is a connection, even if you don't think that she saw it, it's still in you. You don't get to say, oh, she, like, you understand? It's the same way that she gets your facial features. She wasn't a part of that either, but she got it.
But
and so when she's picking someone, oftentimes there is that. Go ahead.
Right. Sorry to cut you off, still trying to talk, but I was saying that within that, a lot of parents assume that they didn't see it, but no, they heard it. I guarantee you, 90% they heard it.
Or they heard the reaction, or they heard mom talking on the phone about it when mom thought they were sleeping, or like you don't get to say, oh, but I wasn't that type of abusive. Abuse is abuse. And when our daughters are choosing, right? The men may be the hunter, but your daughter is choosing this person because there is a familiar spirit, if I can say it like that. It connects. Now, the other thing is, just as people, but our young girls especially, they choose to do what wins. That winning personality. When mom is responding in a, violent or verbally or physically violent way, right? Our young girls tend to take on that personality type because it's the winning personality. Because dad walked away, he lost and he walked away. He was like, you know what, I ain't dealing. And mom was like, nah, he left because he know that, and so that becomes a cycle. It becomes a cycle. And it takes a lot to break that type of conflicting information inside of us, right? Sometimes it takes having a good girlfriend to go knock it off. That's dumb. Right. I'm so grateful for my girlfriends that say, girl, that's stupid. Get over yourself. I'm grateful for that. I don't like it in the moment, but I am grateful that somebody is going, I know you, I know the situation. Get over yourself, because this is not, and I have a friend that we share videos, relationship videos all the time. And I'm like, this is BS, because I don't know Black women who respond this way. And he's like, all the Black women I know respond this way. But I'm being honest. I see it on TV. I know a whole bunch of Michelle Obamas. I don't really know a lot of housewives. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know women who are fighting in boardrooms. Come on now. I know a lot of professional women. This is not a line that we would cross. We will walk away from lucrative deals before we are actually in boardrooms fight. Like, we just will not do that. Right? We are very much don't let you slip hang in public type of women. But there are women who are like, no. And our girls are watching this. What they are mimicking on TV, what they are mimicking from their homes is super It's
It's a
hyper.
it's a mirror. It's literally is a mirror.
Right, but it's a false mirror. It's the mirror that, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
But
no,
they don't know
it's
it.
not. Well, okay. So there is the mirror of what is happening. So it's their reality. However,
It's not truth.
there you go.
It's not okay. Come on
true.
now.
There you go. However, it's not true. It's not the whole truth. It's that filtered perspective of whomever they're seeing do it. It's called the modeled behavior, and we all go through it. We're all human. We all babies. We all grow up. It's modeled behavior, because I can guarantee you that there is something that happened in your life as a child by way of your parent, what your parents did or didn't do, and you said, I would never do that. And you become a parent, and guess what you do? It's modeled behavior. It don't make it right, though. It doesn't excuse it away. But it was something that you had mentioned in regards to, you said that fight, I can't remember the wording that you used, but the fighting, the win, there you go, that winning perspective. But also there's that flip side of it, is where it's not necessarily about a winning, it's about that quote of peace, if you want to call it that, where that female or that male is not going to challenge. And when I say challenge, not in a fighting way, but in an assertive way, and having those boundaries to like, no ma'am, I'm not doing this. So if you don't choose to continue to do this, it's not going to be with me, and I'm not going to allow it. And a lot of people, a lot of children, have never seen that modeled, let alone doesn't even know what that means or what that looks like to implement that. But when it is stated, it's misinterpreted as, oh, you being disrespectful. Oh, you being rude. Oh, you being brand new. And it's so not those things. I feel like we done segued into something else different, but
the emotional baggage, yes.
Because is with our girls, it's also with our boys. You either have these, it's actually for both. You either have the extremely aggressive, and aggressive can be the umbrella, and it can be verbally, it can be physically, and it can be both. Okay. Right. And then you can have the very passive, like, okay, well, that's just them, and oh, whatever, and he'll calm down or she'll calm down. All of this at the end of the day is unhealthy, and it is abusive. So what I share with parents is that your children may not have, quote unquote, seen that version of what they're doing now, but I say go back to toddlerhood, okay? Because I think we all try to forget that, but go back to toddlerhood of raising your children. And they always did the extra on top. That's what our children is going to do. They mirror what they see to some capacity, and they put the cherry on top. And the cherry on top is whatever you felt that they did not see or did not happen in the household. That is what the cherry on top is. Because like you mentioned, with as fathers, you don't get to pick and choose. They always just say the emotional impact of what you did or didn't do, whether you felt your child saw it or your daughter saw it or not, how that impacted them, and then who they sought out to seek a relationship with. And you're like, well, she wasn't raised that way. But what was she exposed to?
Really now?
What was she exposed to? What did she see or didn't see? And what are those things that you felt that she did not hear that she did? So she may be looking for those protective attributes of what you provided or what you spoke of, but not realizing that part of that is not being protective, that's being abusive.
Absolutely. And that does segue into the emotional baggage piece, because our kids are dealing with so many emotions, most of the emotions based on what we're doing. And a lot of that emotion is based on the love we still have, or the anger that we have. And the anger, like, let's just be clear, when we are still fighting and arguing all the time, there is unaddressed emotions, right? So I think a lot of times that arguing and fighting comes from dipping back and forth. the relationship lingering well past the part it should be over, right?
Right.
And so we
And
have
we're
all
going
these
back to as far as the parents who are no longer together.
right, because it's the co-parenting
Yes,
piece.
I'm just
It's like,
clarifying.
right. So we had to deal with the issues of the children and how they're going to
Yes.
respond. But I think that we can avoid a lot of that if, as parents, when we break up, we break up. Like, let's not do the 3 years of sometimes we together, sometimes we not. Let's make an emotional disconnect so that we can make a logical connection of what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And I know that that's not easy. I absolutely know that that's not easy. Kayla's dad and I broke up when I was pregnant. So I absolutely know that that is not an easy thing, but it is necessary to be able to separate our personal issues from the role as a parent.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're hindering and
it's confusing.
Right.
It's confusing for y'all in it. Your children are confused as hell.
Right. So because their hearts are in it too. Their hearts are in it too. We can't deny that.
Is daddy this week? You know what I mean? Or is mommy this week? You know, just this. Stop it. Stop it. If the other person ain't changing, or if you know for you that you not changing, then you need to just dip out.
Absolutely. And I think that's important.
Not as a parent though, but dip out in regards to
of the relationship.
That relationship, yes.
And being honest with it. Like, I think that lingering emotions come from lack of clarity, right? And it also comes from continuing sexual behavior. It also comes from the anger being tied in without it being addressed, right? All of that goes back to the conflict.
Say this right quick, but anger in itself, anger is hurt, okay? Anger is the flip side of hurt. There was some type of disappointment or emotional hurt or abandonment. And not to say that these things specifically happen, but the feeling itself was experienced. So when those things are not addressed and processed and healed, bam, that's how you have your anger. Anger don't pop up out of nowhere, okay? There was an underlying feeling that you experienced. Some people are aware, a lot of people are not, however brief or long it is, and then it transitioned into anger. So when your default feelings and thoughts go there, just know, okay, there are still some things for me that I need to work on for me, because it's still hidden raw. No pun intended, okay? But I'm just saying, it's still bringing up some stuff for me, as if it just happened today, okay? And that could have been 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's a you thing at that time. At that moment, that is literally a you thing, and you need to address it. If you need motivation, and your children are your motivation.
Yes. So let me ask you this, because this is my thought process, but I'm gonna ask you if, from your perspective as a therapist, if this is correct. So I think that when we have this emotional damage and baggage, it triggers a fight or flight. Yes. And people either disconnect or they want to fight it all the way through. And it's like, this person is first of all, it's been 30 years, they dead, and you still fighting with them. Like, I don't want my name in the obituary. Like, you know, like.
And I know people who have said that. I'm like, really? Is it really that serious?
Right. So am I on the right path with that? Because that's what I be saying to parents, right? Like, so if I'm wrong, I need to know. But
no. You hit the nail right on the head, because yes. And
you have parents who disconnect and they can't be parents to the kids because they can't co-parent. They don't want to deal with the other person, or it's their way of punishing the other person by not dealing with the kids. That's still fighting. Even in your disconnect, you are still fighting because your motive is to hurt the other parent.
So I would agree, and I would agree with that, yes. But I will also say the fact that, addressing the feeling aspect, yes. Okay. Totally agree. I'm gonna say this as well, because every person's emotional threshold is different. And what I mean by that, everyone's capacity, ability, and willingness to accept those things that they need to improve or change is different. It don't make it right or wrong. I'm just saying it's different. So there are things I know for me that I have to keep on. I got a big head, but I got to keep it here, because if it get anywhere back here, then you're going. I'm over there with my mama.
Right.
And she may be listening. I'm over there operating like Donna. Okay. So, and there's certain aspects of Donna that don't function well. It ain't healthy. I'll just keep it like that. Okay. Right. And so, and for me, I've learned, and I've learned by way of my husband communicating with me, even my daughter communicating with me. And I was like, okay, reel it back in. But it takes a lot to reel it back in. It's not easy, but you have to be in a space and a place to acknowledge the people who are bringing this to my attention. They love me. They care for me. So it's coming from a loving place. So let me do my part so I can be a better mom, wife, bonus mom, bonus girl, whatever that is within my relationships. Because at the end of the day, this don't feel good.
Yes.
So I want to change this for me first by way of, obviously, it positively impacting my relationships. But that ownership initially is a beast. You know what I mean? It's like that's a hard truth to accept. But it's like, but do you want to be miserable the rest of your life?
Absolutely not.
And do you want a simple decision to you not choose making the simple decision to have this ongoing negative impact on your relationship? And what I mean by your parent-child relationship.
Absolutely. That was deep. That you went to the bottom of the ocean on that one.
Because it don't stop. When you become a parent, it don't stop it. It's not about you no more. Granted, yes, we are people. However, we think, oh, I'm gonna raise my child, and when they turn 18, gonna be all good. No. They still they remember you remembered it. Right. It just don't turn off and disappear because you were quote unquote an adult, or no, because there's more likely going to be kids or no kids at all. All that has an impact on childhood, from childhood. We all play a part. It's the web. We all playing a part within this web. And you have to keep in mind, okay, what is my stuff? What, outside of co-parenting, no, me being a person, what are those things for me that I know deep down I need to work on?
Honestly, like being honest with yourself.
Honestly, like real honesty. Exactly. What do I need to work on for me? And just understand is that I'm going to say it for out loud for you. Those things that you feel, those things you've been avoiding, because I'm pretty sure that many people have already done told you about yourself, those who really love you, whether that was in an anger.
Or those who don't like you at all. They very honest with you about yourself too.
Yeah, they just bluntly honest. There you go. But those things in itself, not to say that if you switch and start working on those things, everything would do a 360. No, but if you're consistently working on that, you will over time start to see a change in your relationships.
Absolutely.
That's with your children, that's with your counterparts, or even within teenage, to be honest, are choosing others to be in a relationship with. And granted, they don't realize this, but they are choosing from the perspective of their emotional experience. So what occurred, what not occurred within their household, related to parents, bonus parents, long-term partners of their parents, but it's that emotional aspect that where they're making those decisions from. And as parents, we can't control what our child emotional experience is. So when they bring home or they're talking about this person and you're looking at them side eye, just know that, okay, there's a likely chance they're picking from an emotional place. And a lot of times they are not necessarily specifically aware of what those specific emotions are, but it's coming from that place. And a lot of the times is what occurred by way of dad, by way of mom, what was said, not said, directly, indirectly, all those things. And so you really do have to keep that in mind.
And you can't hide it. You can't hide it.
Well, you can try, but no, it can't be hidden.
Right, because even when you're trying, like your kids are
Kids know you.
definitely connected to you. They can feel
Yes.
it the same way,
Yes.
you know, your
Yes.
parental instinct kicks in and you're like, something is not right with my baby. Or, you know, you might wake up in the middle of the night like,
Yes.
something, I just got this feeling. And it might be that the door is unlocked. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be anything, but
Right.
you're feeling it and your kids feel it too. And so I think that collectively as a community, we need to get healed from our trauma. And that's the other thing, because we don't feel like a lot of it is trauma. That's a whole nother show.
It is.
We
Yeah,
don't feel like it's trauma.
You know, it is. Okay.
But we know it is because we move in relationships and we go, I don't want this type of person in general because of one experience we had with a person close to us. And that's how we know that we are dealing with trauma of it, right? Because if you don't want to date Black women because of an experience with one Black woman, or even if it was a group, it's still not the totality. It's still not the totality of us, right? But as we close, I want to say, let's do less TV relationships and more loving relationships. Let's do less of what we are seeing. Just, if he does this, we're supposed to respond like this. And we're supposed to, you know, like, I think that we've gotten out of the forgiveness part of relationships because nobody's perfect. And I think that there's a reality of what we're supposed to do versus a truth of what our heart is telling us to do. We're very ego and image focused because of all the things we place in social media. So, and give the relationship status bar a rest. Just my thought. All right. All right. So there are a couple more things that I want to touch on. So part 3. All right. We'll be back. We'll be back on the next episode with part 3. Like, we got to get our thoughts together. Because like I said in part 1, we did not plan this. This is kind of we just gonna talk about it. So I'm excited. I'm excited about what's gonna happen in part 3. Danielle, thank you for riding with me. I could not ask for a better co-pilot. So thank you. We'll see you guys. Feel free to email us your thoughts at therealonparenting@gmail.com. And we'll check you out in the next episode. Talk to you soon.